Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is now just 12 days away from its official release by Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams, and even creator George Lucas. That is all sitting ready to end the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 is that we do know that this movie has a lot going for it. Disney and Lucasfilm are examining this movie as by far the most important Star Wars film there is because, well, it really does determine the future of the franchise and where things will really stand after the release of this movie as far as Disney Plus goes, their new Star Wars trilogy, everything going beyond that as well. Now, on top of all of this, we do know that Episode 9 is also going to be a very emotional film, as J.J. Abrams has stated before in the past. And not just that, a lot of changes and adjustments were made during the months of August, October, or November, all those different months where they adjusted many aspects of the plot of the film in order to set a different tone for this movie, in order to provide the fans a different experience that, honestly, the initial cut of this movie sound far superior than the current version that we have for The Rise of Skywalker that fans will finally be able to see in just some days from now. Now, on top of all of this, what's really intriguing has all to do with one of the revelations surrounding the character of Palpatine and Darth Plagueis, but the bad thing is that it will fully be explained in the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker, due for release in March of 2020. Now, specifically, shot descriptions consisting of a sequence where it's explained that both Rey, Ben Solo, and Palpatine are said to all be inside of his throne room on the world of Exegol, where it's explained that eventually Ben Solo and Rey ignite both of their lightsabers to face Palpatine during their final showdown inside of his throne room. This is where Sidious begins to use a brand new power called the Force Conduit Technique, which allows Sidious to drain the Force energy from both Ben Solo and Rey, causing them to become very lethargic and eventually unconscious as Sidious begins to destroy the First Order and the Resistance above in the sky with his new Force Storm technique. It's explained that in the upcoming novelization due for release in March of 2020 next year, is that it will be unveiled that it is Palpatine's new Force Conduit technique that was actually learned from his master Darth Plagueis, and that his master Darth Plagueis was also able to transfer his consciousness over into the spiritual realm, where at one point before the events of The Force Awakens, Sidious was able to communicate with the spirit of Plagueis to learn about the ancient power that resides over in the unknown regions in the Beyond. It's explained that the spirit of Sidious is the one who told Palpatine about the Beyond, and the power is said to exceed the power of the dark side. Now, the upcoming novelization that will actually release next year will dive further into the secrets of Palpatine and his ways of communicating with the spirit of Plagueis, and how Plagueis allows Sidious to discover the true powers of the Beyond. Now, it's explained that this power that Plagueis revealed to Palpatine dates back to the days of when the galaxy was first formed by the Wills, who are godlike beings, deities, if you will, that created the universe and the entire galaxy as we know it. The novelization is set to establish that Plagueis was able to live on and communicated with Palpatine for quite some time when Palpatine visited the Dark Temples, one of which being based in the world of Exegol, which is said to be seen in the many pieces of footage of the film by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, it's said that this is JJ's way of connecting the film to Revenge of the Sith, and how Plagueis was able to outsmart Palpatine, making him believe that he was dead when in reality Plagueis entered the powerful realm that he actually was able to go through, where he cannot escape. And now, this allows him to live on forever, and this will actually be further explored past the novelization in the forms of future books and comics. Now, the power that Palpatine uses in front of both Rey and Ben Solo is said to be a power that exceeds the dark side of the Force, that allows Palpatine to take down large resistance cruisers and to even use this power as an EMP, almost causing the ships to lose power and crashing down on the surface of Exegol. Now, this is all set to take place in the third act of the film, where it's said that the upcoming film will go over Palpatine's power and how he will be able to rejuvenate himself to a more youthful state of himself to fight against Rey and Ben Solo and to become more powerful than ever before. This was said to be the secret Plagueis knew of but never mastered the ability, and was able to force himself into using the essence transfer to transfer his spirit over into the spiritual realm. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, the thing that I find to be so revealing about this is that in the novelization, by the way, in case you guys did not know, this is all due for release in March of 2020 next year. It's going to be a big deal because it does really extend everything that's going to be shown in the actual movie. So that thing about episode 9, I have expressed my criticism about this movie based on a lot of the decisions that Disney and Lucasfilm have been making and the types of agendas that they're going to be throwing in this movie, really making my eyes roll, I will admit. But these specific revelations, I think, are the more intriguing elements of the Rise of Skywalker. And what really makes me annoyed about this is that this is all going to be told in the form of a book for the most part. And I think that's one big mistake by Disney and Lucasfilm. The fact that all the good, material that's going to be very heavy on the prequel lore and the original trilogy lore, and even borrowing elements from Star Wars Legends, also known as the Expanded Universe, that's all mostly going to be explained, at least in this scenario, in the form of the novelization that's not coming out until 2020. Now, I don't know why they're waiting so long to unveil the novelization of this film, all the way until next year. We're talking about, the end of the first quarter almost of 2020 is when the novelization releases that extends the actual movie and reveals new secrets. So, with that being said, I want to go over how Palpatine was able to communicate with the spirit of Plagueis. This, to me, is by far a very interesting side story that's going to be explained in the novel. Now, the thing about this is that this also dates back to the conversation between Palpatine and Anakin of how Plagueis mastered the ability to cheat death and to create life. And so Palpatine thought that he could not save himself. He actually did, but not the way that he originally intended to. Basically, Plagueis was forced to use his spirit as a way to go over into the spiritual realm. However, he is trapped in there because he never mastered the ability of the Force Conduit technique that Palpatine is now going to use in the Rise of Skywalker. Essentially, the Force Conduit technique, you need two powerful Force users side by side, in a close proximity, to drain their Force power. These have to be, very rare types of individuals that have raw power of the light and the dark that basically they can tap into, and they can actually draw the energy from that. Palpatine is going to use this ability in the Rise of Skywalker on Rey and Ben Solo in the very end of the third act of episode 9, where he's going to become rejuvenated. Now, does that necessarily mean that Palpatine is going to look young per se? I don't know about that, but it's actually said that he will appear as he did in Revenge of the Sith, most likely after he got the deformities. So basically, the Palpatine that we are getting in the very beginning of this movie is going to look far older than ever before of how he appeared in the originals and the prequels. Almost to the point where it's going to look like a different version of Palpatine in the beginning, and then at the very end we're going to have the true version of Palpatine that we all know and love after he rejuvenates himself. So I don't think he's going to rejuvenate himself to how he looked like, how he was as Chancellor, where he had no injuries or no deformities. That's the one thing here. So everything related to Plagueis I find to be very interesting. I'm really shocked and surprised here that they're not really tapping into it more so in the actual movie, and they're saving most of this for the novelization in order to really kind of make the scene a little bit more in-depth when you read it. I think that this is something that not a lot of fans are going to read because, let's face it, for the most part, it's the hardcore fans out there that reads the true Star Wars lore and the canon material and all the little tidbits and everything right there for these characters, the core characters of the Skywalker saga. And the last thing I just want to tap into here real quick is that this movie, by the way, JJ tries, or is at least trying to make this the darkest Star Wars film there is. I just don't see it. I don't see it topping Revenge of the Sith. But one thing is for certain is that new Force powers will be the highlight of Episode 9, and I guess that's one thing to be curious about when it comes to this movie. So, with that being said, guys, I would like to hear what each and every one of you guys have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.